This is Mike from YOB, and you're watching the Austin Underground.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Austin Underground. Today we're hanging with YOB's Mike Scheidt. How's it going, man?
Good.
Great.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to meet you. Welcome back to the city. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks.
So let's talk about most recent release, Our Raw Heart, obviously. Based upon this intense near-fatal battle that you had with diverticulitis. I imagine you've been getting a ton of press coverage about it already. Mm-hmm. So just as a quick health update, how you been feeling, man?
Been feeling all right.
Yeah?
I have to live a little differently.
Right.
And I have a new normal, so it's not like, it's kind of hard to say what normal is now. Right. But, I'm doing pretty good.
Adjusting, getting by. Mm-hmm. That's good. So when it comes to this, the demanding nature of your tour schedule and your, live performances, how do you manage, your health, your endurance on stage and on the road?
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right.
But drinking a lot of water.
That's healthy.
Eating well. Trying to get sleep and, alcohol to a minimum or zero. Okay. And that all seems to help. Sounds good, man.
Glad to hear that you're in a better place there now. So after this, 2-year experience of you going through this battle, writing your music, in your bed, showing it, experiencing it with the community, with your fans, what's it like to reflect on that now?
It still feels, in ways it feels like a long time ago, and in other ways it's, it informs my present moment. Right. And so it's kind of always here too, but I try to, take it all with, as open a perspective as possible.
Of course.
And focus on what it is that I love to do. Right. And try to, not have it be all about illness.
Exactly.
Because it's easy just to kind of carry that around and have it be a story, but it becomes a kind of a confining story, especially when you're going on living.
Right. And especially with, I guess, just constant press coverage. I mean, even now, just, want to talk about it, want to make sure that, you're doing healthy, man.
Yeah.
But
no, it's awesome. And I of course, am honored by all that.
Of course. So with, the recent outpouring, from fans with, the GoFundMe, what's that kind of experience like, interacting with your fan base like that?
Well, it was very humbling and made me feel really lucky and very uncomfortable. Right. And all of it.
It's got to be, a strange experience kind to contextualize and bringing that all together. But, you're really bringing a community together by doing what you do. And, I'm just so happy that the support's there.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of that community.
So speaking, going a little further, there's a heavy emphasis on these concepts of mysticism, Buddhism, metaphysics in, YOB's discography. Some songs like Atma featuring Alan Watts' teachings in them. What are some central text teachings and ideas that you would personally recommend just for someone, in their daily life, but also to, understand YOB to a greater extent?
Well, part of what I do with YOB for myself is to try to understand myself and understand how I shape my own world and taking responsibility for the content of my thinking. Right. And trying to be more and more flexible, within, I think people get used to certain kinds of thinking, and then that becomes them, right? You have the habits of thinking, what makes you mad, what makes you sad, what makes you glad, all these things, but those things aren't necessarily universal. But the kind of strategies to try to deal with not being sad or to try to become happy or whatever it is, often those strategies don't work very well. Right. And so to me, I just try to keep it really simple. It's just remembering to breathe and remembering just, I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh, just, when you breathe in, know you're breathing in. If it's a short breath, you know it's a short breath. If it's a long breath, you know it's a long breath.
Mm-hmm.
When you breathe out, you're breathing out. And it's the same thing, you know, if you're exhaling long or short. And just that alone will bring you right to the moment. And all of a sudden, thoughts, instead of it being like these movies that we're playing to ourselves,
right,
that kind of stops for a second. And then you're just here. And then all of a sudden, you can start watching the movie and go, I'm the director of this movie.
Right.
Do I like this movie? What do I want to change about it? You know, how do I want to, you know, maybe I want to do something different. And habitual thinking can lock somebody in.
Right.
Feeling like they can't do something different. But, you know, I think in the modern world, we're uncomfortable, but we're made uncomfortable by a lot of things that are very mental and far away.
Right.
You know, social media and the news, and there's so many things that are happening that are, depending on where you're at, you might be right in the epicenter, or it might be something that seems so far removed.
Exactly.
But as far as just being really sitting with our own thoughts and not bouncing them against other things, but really just looking at them, it's very uncomfortable.
Right. Centering in on the self.
But, you know, I think that's the only way to grow to a certain degree. I mean, to grow in a way that lasts.
That's meaningful.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, it's not for me to say what that is for anyone else.
Okay.
You know, that's just me.
Right. Sounds like a good personal philosophy, man. Sounds like good words to live by.
It's a work in progress.
There you go. I mean, it's always got to be, you know, a constantly evolving, changing state with those sorts of things too, as, you know, different situations and contexts approach. You got to adapt with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I just said, you know, it follows a line of logic and, I guess, mysticism or whatever. But, I mean, the actual mysticism part of it is, you know, I don't know what anything is.
Okay.
You know, science will tell me
what something is.
Religion will tell me another thing, a politician. But really, all the naming and the goo-goo and gaga is stuff that comes later. Right. And it's useful, but it's not. We get lost. We forget that this is a fucking miracle. Absolutely. And it's not like I don't mean that like a Hallmark card way. It's just, it's miraculous. It's magic. It's bizarre.
To be at all.
Weird. And a lot of things have to be taken for granted, and a lot of stuff has to be, dots have to be connected in a such way to really get to these places where we attack each other. Mm-hmm. And we just forget that this is all us. We're all connected. We live in a mysterious, trippy situation.
We do. So what's one thing that you would want to see in your lifetime, whether it's some discovery or like a technological or social advancement? What's something you want to see?
And we got enough technology to kill ourselves a million times over. Right. We don't have a very good understanding of our emotions or why we think the way we think very well. I don't think. I think that on average, there's a lot of people where mindfulness and things like that are becoming more and more something that's being explored. But I really do think that that's what I would like to see, if anything. It's just there being
a more mindful approach.
Yeah, I suppose.
Sounds good to me. I think that'd be pretty healthy.
That's what I'd like to see out of myself too. I claim nothing.
Claim nothing.
Yeah, I'm working on shit. I'm working on it.
Do you claim the works that you produce though?
What do you mean?
Just like, I guess essentially, what does it mean when you say that you claim nothing?
I don't make any claims that I've figured anything out.
Right.
I don't make no claims to that.
Okay.
I just know that there's a lot that I don't know, and that fact becomes more and more like a leading force than carrying around everything that I think I do know. Mm-hmm. Which makes it, that's not just some end result. That's just a part of being in the moment. And, within that, you try to be a good friend and good partner and good person, parent. And, do your best. And, but I think within that, part of the growth part is also just making sure that we're not so lost in our heads that it creates some kind of false idea of separation.
Okay.
That literally doesn't exist.
Right. So, when it comes to these ideas, what kind of advice could you give, specifically to kids like struggling with their self-identity, struggling with where they see their place in the world, dealing with bullying and isolation, and how do you, as a father, kind of contextualize that?
I think the only thing we really have any kind of control over, if anything, is just our own choices, and we have a lot more control over our thinking than we think. Mm-hmm. And so channeling energy into things that feel good,
right,
that are enriching, that, if it's a passion or a desire to learn or to become something, to really just put the energy into that. And certainly there's plenty of negative things to be aware of and mindful of and be responsible for, but I think that the scales sometimes can get tipped that direction, and then being alive can become a real bummer.
Right.
And I think if a person's taking care of themselves, meaning they're taking care of their body, they're examining the contents of their mind, and they're engaged in their passions in their community, mm-hmm. If they're doing that, then if things go badly, you have a strong body, you have an open mind, you have an ability to be helpful. Mm-hmm. And if things are great, you can celebrate.
Right.
The celebration's all the sweeter. You're not in your own way.
Exactly.
And so that's it.
That's very thoughtful. So let's talk a little bit about changes in the music industry. So you used to work in a record shop. Seeing how the music industry has approached from this like localized form of, discovering records and CDs, interacting with the local scene, to, this online approach where music is discovered at the click of a button. How have you witnessed changes in the community? Some say there's this fracturing with, metalheads arguing the merits of different subgenres. Others say this is like a unification process. What are your thoughts on this?
To me, I don't know. I understand why people get really passionate about those things. Mm-hmm. For me, I just kind of focus on what I like. And as far as like the arguing for or against any particular genre or subgenre, I just don't, I don't feel the need to do it.
Totally.
I think if I was, the 12-year-old kid I was today, mm-hmm. and could discover music at the click of a button and check all sorts of things out, and not have to bicycle 20 miles to go to a record store and buy things based on what they looked like,
right?
Because you hadn't heard them, but you like the album.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real joy in that, and I actually treasure that. But I do the same thing. So I go on YouTube, I go to people's band camps.
Oh, yeah.
I'm checking things out all the time, and I don't see, if there's a so-called, if there's some kind of fracturing, I don't know, I guess I just don't see that in where we are at. It
right.
just seems like people are more connected and have a camaraderie in the records that they love and share, and then people will come together, and if it happens to be that they're all into slam bands, well, they're in the slam band show.
Right.
Or if it's the black metal show, or if it's the doom metal show, or whatever subity sub genre it is. But I also see people's listening palettes being generally pretty diverse, mm-hmm. Where things like Michael Jackson and Purple Rain and Into Crypts Arrays, kick in with some Celtic Frost and maybe Suffocation afterwards, and then maybe some Coltrane after that.
There you go.
It's people do that,
right?
In 2019,
I feel like that's the way to listen to music, as like a whole experience like that.
So I guess it depends on what your definition of fractured is, but as far as bands being feet on the pavement, being a band out there in the world, I don't think anyone could argue that being visible and heard is helpful,
right?
When you're going to go out and tour. Back, if it wasn't something that was in a magazine, or if you weren't on a label in 1982 and on tour, mm-hmm. people didn't hear you.
Right.
So, I mean, you had to actually be in clubs and have some kind of PR that was somehow got into the magazine, the print magazines.
Right.
So that people could check you out. And even then, they still couldn't just go hear you.
Yeah.
They'd either have to go to the show or go buy the record.
Exactly.
Or if their buddy's got the record.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I see a lot of positives in it. And whatever the negatives are, people talk about the negatives.
Right.
So it just seems like it's getting better to me.
I agree, I have to say. So one last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone throughout history, who would it be and why?
Oh, that was really tough. I mean, I guess at this moment, you know, I'd have to go somewhere between either Townes Van Zandt or Ramana Maharshi.
Okay. What would y'all talk about?
Townes, I don't know. You know, I think we just hang and then whatever
have a jam
whatever
sesh?
came out. I think with Ramana, I'd probably be full of questions. And,
Definitely.
And he may or may not answer them.
Too true. Well, we really appreciate your time here. You got anything you want to plug?
Thanks to everybody who's been coming out to the shows, and when we get home, we're going to be working pretty hard on new music, and so that's the next thing that's coming for us. And but you know, before then, some festivals and touring with Neurosis and Kellen Walled City. So
check them out.
Come on out.
We'll be there. All right. Thank you so much, Mike.
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
this has been an awesome time. Stay tuned to Austin Underground for more YOB news and coverage. Until then, we'll see ya.